Hello and welcome to The Hash. It is Tuesday. We got a lot to get to, so let's get to it. I am Zach Seward. Will Foxley down there. Jen Sanasi also down there. Naomi Brockwell up top. She's got the story of the day. She's going to lead us off. Naomi, do the deed.
Gonna do the deed. This sounds so, I don't know, nefarious. But we're not talking about anything nefarious to open the show today. Some pretty exciting news, actually. Coinbase is allowing US users to deposit paychecks directly in crypto, which is pretty cool. The idea is that instead of your money being deposited from your job directly into your bank account, it can be deposited directly in Coinbase instead, can be deposited in crypto, if I understand correctly. Details were a little vague from the reporting. This is being rolled out for a while, so I wasn't quite sure whether they instantly convert it into a crypto of your choice or whether they're just not giving you fees for depositing it into Coinbase. But I'll throw this to the group for your thoughts on this if anyone has further clarity. But it's either way, it seems like a really positive step in the right direction, getting more people into crypto and just automatically converting those paychecks. But Zach, I'll throw to you to start off with.
Yeah, I don't know much about the technical details here, but I do think the bigger picture, is really notable. And we saw with Russell Okung, I think it was late last year, NFL player who, took part of his salary or converted part of his salary into Bitcoin. And there was a lot of excitement around that from average Joes like us, right? When can I get paid in Bitcoin too? And the fact that Coinbase seems to have heard some of that feedback and built a product around it is actually pretty interesting to me. So I'm going to be curious to see what the uptick of this looks like. And it could be, I think we're going to pry Coinbase for numbers. They might have to disclose those numbers at their earnings call, but it'll be a good sort of representative snapshot of how many true believers are out there to the point where they're converting some of their paycheck directly into their Coinbase account, presumably for the first time. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of uptick this product finds.
Yeah. Will, what are your thoughts and everything? Sorry, Jen, you were about to say something. Will, you're cut off. No, it's going to Jen. Changed my mind.
Woo! Thanks, Naomi. It's just like a girl power A block we got going here. Yep, thank you. I think this is super. I think this is super exciting. But when we've spoken about the athletes in the past, we've talked a lot about tax implications when it comes to actually spending your crypto. And I think we've all said that these athletes, are probably putting the portion of their paycheck into crypto that they're going to hold on to and maybe not spend. And so I wonder what that means for the average Joe. I would love to see some more clarity when it comes to taxes and crypto to be more excited about this, but it definitely is a step in the right direction. I don't know, Zach, if you have any more clarity for me on that.
Yeah, I know the IRS said not long ago that, buying and holding, you're good to go, right? Like you don't sort of inflict any sort of tax penalty for doing so. So buying and holding, good to go. I think at point of sale, obviously there's implications, and whether people will use it like that, I think that's still an open question, right? This may become sort of the de facto retirement savings account for a new generation of investors, right? Hey, don't put 5% of my paycheck in my 401k with my 2% match from my company. Let's just put 5% directly into my Coinbase account and see which one grows faster. So I think that from a product perspective is probably some of the thinking, but I'll toss it to Naomi for her thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, the tax side of things is super easy through Coinbase. They make it really easy. You print off some forms and it's all laid out there in your account. So if you're actually doing all your transactions from Coinbase, then it's very easy to calculate all this stuff. It's funny because I often get comments from people who are like, why would I want to pay 20% above, on anything that I'm buying so that just for the privilege of using crypto? And it's like, no, actually, it's the opposite. It's holding that money in crypto. You're making a bunch of money as that asset appreciates. You're paying a small percentage on whatever it's grown by. Like, I don't think that really registers with people. All they're thinking about is the money coming out of their account. They're not realizing that the people who are using crypto and holding their money in crypto, as long as we're in a bull market, they're making a ton of money. And if we're not in a bull market, they don't owe any taxes at all. That's actually a write-off for them. So, it is interesting that people are still not quite understanding how all the tax stuff works around this. It isn't clear at all. I know lots of friends who just spend hours and hours at the accountant's office for all of their really technical workings in the crypto space. But as far as putting your paycheck into crypto and, either spending it or holding it, it's actually super easy, and Coinbase does a good job at that. But Will, I'll throw this to you for your thoughts. Are you going to be putting some of your paycheck into crypto?
First, I'm just surprised to tip me on Twitter.
No, not going to happen. Got to tweet better. There's I'm surprised this hasn't been a feature like earlier. Like this seems kind of late because Cash App, you can do this. You've been able to do this forever. And of course, they don't have all these tokens. They don't have all this functionality that Coinbase has. But you can buy Bitcoin and you can deposit directly to their app. Surprised that Coinbase hasn't done this in the past. Maybe there's some regulatory stuff that you need to kind of check off that I didn't know about before. Just responding to your earlier comment, though, about depositing money into Coinbase, flipping into crypto, and appreciating the value of your underlying holdings. It's pretty awesome during a bull market, but bull markets are few and far between. So unless you really adhere to the super cycle theory, I think it could get you in a bad place. But that's my only thought on this. Like, you have to be careful when it comes to direct deposit your payroll into crypto specifically.
I think that's fantastic advice. I think that we are all very optimistic about long-term future of crypto, and people do need to keep in mind that it fluctuates wildly. And if this is your savings account, you are taking a big risk. Like when I, changed my 401k or my Roth to be able to put stuff into Grayscale, I had to specifically check a box that was like, I am now taking uber super duper risk on the highest level, ultra red, and I had to
Is that what the box said?
That's exactly those exact words. You can quote me on that. They really had to confirm over and over that I understood I was taking a risk, because a lot of people are creating these savings, retirement accounts, and they're thinking, well, this is definitely going to be there. Crypto, it's a very high risk asset. So I think that's a great point if people are putting their paycheck into this. Understand the risks. For the rest of us who love risk taking, I'm pretty excited about this. But Zach, I'll throw it to you for final words.
Yeah, imagine if Gary Gensler didn't nuke the Lend product, because then you could deposit your savings into Coinbase, get 4% on your USDC holdings, and boom.
Gangster Gary.
He's the worst.
He is the worst. All right. Hey, he's not the worst. Come on now. It's okay.
No, he is, okay. Zach. He is. Why is he protecting people from 4% interest? This is ridiculous. You're absolutely right. We're being stolen from right now. We have 5.5% average interest rate over the year. Average inflation. And that's money that we're losing. Go. Coinbase was trying to give us back some of that in the form of 4% interest. And the SEC is like, nope, can't possibly jeopardize all that money inflating away, by the government. Like, I just think it's crazy. And I am a very anti-Gensler person because of it. And many other reasons.
Act like a bank, be regulated like one, something like that. I don't know. More for another day. But let's toss it down to Jen for the next story.
All right. So more on the regulation front. That was an interesting transition. U.S. Senators Maggie Hassan and Joni Ernst have proposed new legislation that would require the Treasury Department to track crypto mining activities and use cases worldwide. The bill would task the Treasury Department, Attorney General, members of the Federal Reserve, among others, with monitoring how crypto is used by governments and private entities worldwide. Naomi, you started on a tangent there, so I'm going to kick this down to you. What did you take away from the story when you read it this morning?
I feel like you guys just choose topics to trigger me, and I don't know whether it's deliberate. Just realize that you're pushing my stress levels.
It's out of love.
It's in our contract.
Fair enough. That makes a lot of sense. You obviously know my take on this. The fact that they're trying to get a better handle on how cryptocurrencies are used worldwide. This is all, again, about control. They want to track this so that they can control this. It's scary. They're kind of honing in on mining. They want to know, how many people are mining this? How much are they mining? Which coins are being mined? Which coins have been mined in the past? All of this stuff. But what I love about crypto is this stuff is so hard to get specific information on. When you have a census going from door to door and you have to fill in specific boxes and all of that, it's easy to track a population. But when you have a decentralized system and you don't even know who to target, it becomes a lot harder to gather that information. And I love the dawning of this new age where people are retaining more privacy and control over their data. I think that's fantastic. I think that it's always bad the more information that governments have. Was it Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore who refused for a long time to collect any information on citizens, or was it Hong Kong? One of these places, like famous example where they, he was asked like, what do you owe the prosperity of this place? They said, well, we don't collect any information on the citizens. Because as soon as you do that, you have this desire to want to control those things and manipulate those things, rather just let those things happen, let the market kind of do its own thing, and you'll end up with more prosperity. So, I love the idea that maybe we're moving into an era where we can just let people do their own thing. Governments aren't going to like it. Of course, they're going to try and get more information and crack down on this. I'm just not quite sure how successful they're going to be. But I'll throw this to Zach.
I think this is like really interesting, like battle of the boogeymen in DC, right? We have Bitcoin versus China, and like which one will prevail in the hearts and minds of lawmakers looking to glad a hand with their constituents. Like, I think it's really interesting, right? Like we see a lot of like anti-China rhetoric in Washington, and now Bitcoin is squarely something that China is acting against. And we've seen sort of like some initial rhetoric around, hey, China's doing this, so wait a minute, maybe this is something that we should be supporting, actually. It's going to be interesting to see if that picks up steam. And I see this development sort of situated in that bigger political context around what is Bitcoin's role in the global financial system? What is the US's role in the global financial system? And by proxy, what is China's role in the US financial system? And Bitcoin is really interesting political football right now between those two big emerging narratives. So this to me is part of that. It's going to be really interesting to watch.
It's interesting, the narrative around this news. They've come out and said that they want to do this so that they can see how mining potentially affects the supply chain. And so, Will, when you hear that, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that's just a narrative that they're using to kind of guise all of the things that Naomi just brought up?
Yeah, when I see people attack mining, it's interesting to me because the first thing that sparks to my mind is that they don't understand how Bitcoin works, because that's probably the worst thing to attack because it's the most basic, it's the most simple, and it's the most protected by private property laws. Like you can't just seize someone's computer just because you feel like it, and that's what it is. It's just a computer. Where you're going to need to go after is the exchanges that are acting similarly to banks. But we see a lot of people in the Senate and in Congress who are just so fixated on mining. And I think it's because maybe there's like a physical aspect to Bitcoin with mining that you don't really get in the other aspects of Bitcoin. Everything else in Bitcoin is like very virtual, kind of hard to understand. But mining, you have like this physical component, it has to be housed somewhere, and people just kind of grasp onto it. But it just doesn't make sense. There's not a lot to track in mining. It's just people stacking Bitcoin blocks on top of each other, seeing how many computers are in the world. It's actually fairly boring and not that intensive. Look at something else, though. If you look at the exchange world, you look at DeFi, those are like things that have much greater attack surfaces for regulators to go after. So when I see something like this from the Senate, I'm thinking they still don't know what they're talking about. And it's just made clear by these really vague laws and regulations that they're trying to scope out. Naomi, I saw your hand go up really quick there, though.
Yeah, I think that they're going after mining because it's actually the scariest to them. People have printing presses in their houses now. They have money that isn't going through some official system where it's noted down in your bank account. Oh, Naomi received this much this week. It's all in my record. This stuff is completely off the record. And I think that's terrifying to governments, because if they have money that they don't even know who's getting it, that's such a headache for government, especially if their whole purpose is to kind of control things and make rules about how people can and can't spend their money if they don't know who is getting that money. I think it's scary for them. One thing that they can do is kind of look at heat signatures in terms of energy usage, and then they can try and crack down on who's mining. But again, we're becoming more decentralized in that regard as well. People are getting solar panels on their roof. They're finding ways around it. Like, we're getting to a stage where this stuff can't be controlled. So that's pretty exciting there. Keep on mining, everyone. Keep on having that external source of income that gives you back more financial sovereignty.
All right, we're going to take a break. But after the break, we're going to talk about Revolut, latest fintech thing to get even deeper into crypto, maybe launching their own token soon. We'll talk about that after the break. Stick with us. It's The Hash.
CoinDesk indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. CoinDesk indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
CoinDesk Bitcoin Price Index, XBX, has been instrumental to Grayscale, enabling investors around the world to access Bitcoin through a regulated, familiar product.
CoinDesk indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
Okay, welcome back to the Hash. We have a really awesome chart that I handcrafted with stone and chisel that we're going to throw up here in a second. Look at that chart. Okay.
Look at that. Even read it. Will, you can't read this chart.
I've gotten so much feedback this morning. Kind of wish I didn't wake up today. Okay, let's talk about Beepool. Let's talk about more Ethereum mining. So the little world of Ethereum mining is not interesting to most folk, but I find it interesting. And recently, we've had a lot of news in this really small sector. So Ethermine, I'm getting so confused now. Sparkpool and Beepool are two Ethereum pools located in China, and they both have shuttered services. Sparkpool announced yesterday that all international clients will have to find a different pool by the 30th September. Beepool followed up today and said by October 15th, everyone on their account will also have to find a different pool to use. So that makes up about 26% of all Ethereum's hash rate. So a few things just to clear up. That doesn't mean that Ethereum's hash rate is going away. It means that all the miners who subscribe to that pool are going to have to find another pool to use. What this kind of indicates, though, is that the Chinese government is cracking down on almost every single sector of the cryptocurrency industry. So we had some really nice reporting from Maggie Hassan on CoinDesk last week talking about the kind of clamping down on the gray zones of cryptocurrency industry in China, which would include crypto to crypto transactions. And that's why these pools are trying to shut down, because they kind of operate in that sense. You know, they're not an exchange. They're not miners themselves, but they do transfer mining profits to miners, which is a crypto transaction. And they don't want to be attacked by the Chinese government, so they're shutting down their services. Sparkpool was founded in 2016. Beepool's also, I think, 2018, but don't quote me on that. So older legacy pools, they're choosing not to operate anymore, shutting down their services completely so they don't get rigged up by the authorities. Pretty interesting story, just continued pressure on the Chinese front. Jen, I want to throw this to you. When you see all this happening, what's your thought?
Well, I mean, I'm still kind of forming my thoughts around. I'm not laughing at you. I'm not laughing at you. It's just funny that you threw it to me. I'm still forming my thoughts around this. I mean, when I look at your chart, those are two major pools. So where are these miners going to go? Tell me. What's going to happen?
So mining is very decentralized. It's almost like a node network. There we go. That's a beautiful chart. Size could be a little larger. Okay, so miners operate wherever, and Ethereum miners are often GPU miners, which a lot of like your gamer nerds out there, they turn off World of Warcraft and they flip the switch, and then they're mining Ethereum, and you can kind of make some passive income that way. How you mine is you then point that energy from your computer towards a mining pool, which is basically just a URL, can do little connections there. Boom, you have Ethereum streaming to your wallet. Sparkpool, Beepool, and maybe others, we'll see, have to shut down because the Chinese government's coming after them. So basically, it just means that we're going to have different pools pop up that's going to take that hash rate. And we're also seeing services that Sparkpool and Beepool offer are going to go away. For example, Sparkpool offers Gas Now, which is a really popular tracker DeFi ecosystem for understanding gas networks. They also offer something called Taichi Network, which is like a private transaction network for if you really want to get some stealthy Ethereum profits. So we're just seeing, like, just in general, a larger crackdown on Ethereum or just the cryptocurrency in general in China. So less to do with mining here and more to do with the general cryptocurrency industry. Zach, get your thoughts on this one.
I've just been imagining Will Foxley at like a Senate hearing, like in DC, like at some future date, and he's up there and he's got his chart. He's got his big chart like on the board, like on the little easel, and he's like pointing the chart. He's got the stick, he's got the laser pointer, and he's just making the facts known on crypto mining.
And Jen's gawking
at me
in the
context. Yeah, and then there's like the buy Bitcoin guy back there.
Supporter, Will.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I was thinking about this whole time. Just that mental image is what came to mind. That's it. That's it, man. I mean, I think okay. We saw this yesterday. We're seeing it again today. the ripple effects of this latest crackdown are very far reaching, and I think that's why it's not easy to discount this as, oh, this is just a recycled China FUD. This is actually a bit different. I think we're seeing some of the ramifications a bit more quickly than we had in the past. So great to be flagging sort of the latest developments on that front for sure.
Totally, Naomi.
Yeah,
let's get some
I'll
original thoughts here.
Original thoughts. So it's interesting, some miners had quietly resumed Ethereum mining operations in China after the crackdown in May. And I wonder how many times that's going to keep going, whether each time there's a ban, maybe people are scared off to start off with, and then just quietly they re-enter. Because there are a lot of people in China who are big risk takers, and there's a lot at stake, if they can't operate this global financial system, and currently a lot of their choices are being curtailed. So, Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto at large offers tremendous opportunity for these people, which may be worth taking tremendous risks. So even if the government is cracking down, it is difficult for the government to enforce this a total ban. So there are going to be big gaps in their surveillance system of cryptocurrency, of mining, of all of this. And I think that as people start to figure out what those gaps are, they're going to start to take advantage of them. And China's going to be back in the game, but just under the radar, just because this stuff is too important and it's too valuable to the people there. But I'll throw this back to you, Will.
Yeah, last thought before we toss it to Zach for this nice Revolut scoop. It's interesting that the Ethereum community has put a lot of time and energy into the Chinese market. For instance, Vitalik Buterin taught himself Chinese while inventing Ethereum. He was doing both at the same time, and he would go over to China quite often.
Such an overachiever.
I know.
It's wild just to think about that. And he's put a lot of time and effort into building up these Chinese communities. And a lot of these Chinese Ethereum communities were mining based. They weren't necessarily always based in the trading side or other aspects. They're based in the mining side because that was more approachable for them. Now that's cut off. And so we've seen the second largest economy in the world is closing its doors, not only to Ethereum, but cryptocurrency in general. And I'm wondering what the ripple effects are for that going forward over the next 5 years. Zach, I'll give it to you.
That was some great historical perspective. Thank you, Will. All right, we're going to keep it in the B block, boys, and we're going to go to Revolut. Our guy Ian Allison talked to a number of sources who told him that Revolut, the UK-based fintech firm, is in the process of launching its own crypto token, which is actually quite notable. Now, Revolut is among a crop of fintech players such as PayPal, Robinhood that offer easy access to crypto buying and selling. But this is a bit more. This is something akin to maybe the exchange token jumping into the land of fintech, which I think is really interesting and suggests that fintech interest in the world of crypto is certainly here. I'm going to toss this to Will straight off the bat. Your initial thoughts on this Revolut scoop?
Yeah, I've kind of a weird out there thought, but I'm just going to throw it out anyways. There's been a lot of haterade against tokens for the last few years, but I think we're seeing that corporations kind of the idea of having their own token for whatever reason that is. That might be the weird backdoor way that we see tokens kind of get into mainstream. It's not through just people kind of wanting to have a token for themselves or some sort of social token. It's that a company has more control over its cash flows and over its own business when it can issue its own token and provide services through that token. So Revolut going through with a token like this, if they choose to continue pursuing it, that kind of speaks to how tokenization can kind of be a part of the corporate world in the next 5 to 10 years. That's my only insights for now. I know Revolut is a huge banking firm in Europe, and so pretty interesting to see them kind of get into this tokenization world itself. But I don't have very many thoughts past that. Naomi, I'll throw it to you though.
Yeah, I think I saw Jen's hand go up.
Will just hates
I missed a hand.
I saw that.
I gave it to you for the first one.
And then he just
all right, I'll throw it to you and then I'll get in there.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. I mean, Zach, you mentioned Robinhood and PayPal, and this kind of sets them apart from some of their competitors. When I was reading the story, I was thinking about how would you explain a token to someone who's kind of new to the space or someone who's on the Revolut app who's just starting to dabble in crypto? And could we explain it as something similar to your credit card points, a token that you can earn and put towards fees and trading, and could potentially also bring other benefits that we don't know about yet? Is that how you would explain it to someone who's new to crypto?
Yeah, we don't know the details beyond the fact that it's not going to be a stable coin, but I think that's a great way to explain it, Jen. I mean, airline miles are a great example, right? That's an example of a digital currency. It's not a cryptocurrency because it doesn't exist outside of the walled garden of a particular airline, but I think that's a great example, right? So like if this is the airline mile equivalent of a fintech app that you use and love every day that gets you access to things that you wouldn't otherwise have access to, I can see why that would have mainstream appeal. And I think maybe we're going to see some more experimentation around this from other big companies such as Revolut. I'll toss it to you, Naomi.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of paradigm shift because these digital assets are not new. We've talked about it on the show before. Like, Zach, you're absolutely right. Airline miles, Starbucks points, all of these companies issue their own digital versions of value storage as part of their walled garden, and they make it redeemable for services or discounts or whatever. But the difference is that in the past, these have been completely controlled, and they're kind of like, they're incentivizing repeat customers. They want people to come back. So they're saying, well, come back, we'll give you these tokens and these discounts and whatnot. But it's interesting that they could kind of control that and it's directly redeemable for a certain value. When you have cryptocurrencies, they're tradable on the open market. That value fluctuates. Like it's a very different paradigm that we're shifting into as companies start to explore this tokenization world more and more. It's not necessarily like stable in that before, frequent flyer miles would buy you a certain percentage of a trip or perhaps a whole trip. And it was very specific how much they're worth. The same with credit card points. It's very specific how much cash back you get with these. If these are fluctuating on an open market, then this is a variable amount depending on how much people want these tokens. Like it's just a very interesting shift that we're seeing. And I wonder whether this is getting into a very complex territory that perhaps these companies don't quite realize. They're focused on their products. They want to be streamlined and laser focused on making whatever it is, whatever product they're focused on. And suddenly they're in this world of a fluctuating cryptocurrency that may or may not buy a certain amount of goods. It's just a big shift for them. They're going to have to become experts in the kind of the economics of all of this. And maybe they're just not going to become experts and maybe something else happens entirely. But it is pretty interesting to see those walled gardens get taken down and to see this transferability. I think that integration of all kinds of industries and countries and people across the globe is really cool and what will be a defining aspect, of the decades ahead.
Yeah, it's not exactly this, but I really love this term. I was talking to a guy and he coined it. It's called mullet-fi, where it's fintech in the front, DeFi in the back.
You should get a mullet.
Business in the front, party in the back. Yeah, I've had a mullet before. Little known fact. But,
you would fit that shirt.
Ooh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Really fit that shirt.
All right, good. Well,
I like the
we're
shirt,
gonna
though.
shut down the show on that note. we're gonna wrap it.
I do like the shirt.
Gonna wrap it there.
Close it off.
Just
Close it
gonna
off.
shut it down.
We're gonna cut to black.
Shut it down. Yeah, that's the end of the hash for Tuesday. we'll be back on Wednesday. In between now and then, all about Bitcoin, CoinDesk TV, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's really good stuff. A lot of good articles on CoinDesk.com, and there's all sorts of stuff to learn about the crypto world, and that's why it's a fun place to be working. So I hope you have a good one. I hope you guys had a good show. Will, Naomi, Jen, thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See you.